So extreme ownership concept from Jocko Willink and Elise Babin's book, Extreme Ownership. Uh, Jocko has a couple other books, which I love as well. But this is the one that has really changed my life and changed really the last several years of really how I think and act. I think I read it 5 or 6 years ago and posted on our company's wall, and have really kind of changed how I treat other people on the team and how I manage myself and how I manage others. But bringing in extreme ownership into cybersecurity as well as IT is important. It can apply to any part of business and any team, but uh, really the idea that you can't blame anybody else. Yes, other people are involved and other people are factors, but if somebody did something wrong, it's because you didn't help them do it right. It's because you didn't help them understand, or you didn't instruct them properly, or you didn't manage them correctly. Even if they did understand it and they just, played around the whole time, uh, they, you're the one responsible for that. You're the one who hasn't helped them step up. And as a manager, or as a leader, or as a teammate, we're each responsible for everybody in our team, and each responsible for what happens for everything below us and around us. So that's something that a lot of corporate cultures don't have. They're almost looking for blame. And when I see leaders shirk blame, or when I see them avoid responsibility, it kind of makes me sick at this point. A leader bears responsibility for all success and failure in their organization. Whether it's cybersecurity org, IT operations, whatever. The leader has to be able to recognize mistakes, accept responsibility for them, and come up with a way to improve. And through that, develop the respect of their followers and teammates, and which will only help their career and growth, but it'll help everybody on the team. So the idea that there's no bad teams, only bad leaders is really that you can put a good leader in any team and it'll succeed. And Jocko mentioned this in the book when talking about the SEAL training, when they were doing I forget what the drill is called, but it's the raft carry, and you go so many miles on the beach and then in the water and et cetera, and it's a race basically, and you get timed. And then you can take the worst timed team and put the best leader in it, and suddenly it's the best team. So a lot of this has to come down to leadership rather than individual performance, and rather than team performance. Team performance is a result of good leadership. So in extreme ownership, that leader has to be inspirational and transformational about everything, about leading. It has to be empathetic to your teammates and your colleagues, and it has to be a clear communicator to be able to communicate what's important and what the expectations are, and really what are the key parts of executing this properly. Now, one of the things that we run into a lot, especially in the corporate world, is people have had a few successes and their ego blows up, especially kind of in the influencer world. You have a couple CISOs here that are really more influencers than CISOs, and it's all ego. It's 100% ego, and there's there's a lot of cloudiness around taking responsibility, because ego is to the point where people don't want to take responsibility because that'll hurt their reputation, it'll hurt their optics and visibility. So I argue that if you're really taking responsibility, that if you're really being, exemplifying extreme ownership in your cybersecurity and IT leadership, that regardless of the event, you will look good. Even in the biggest breach, even in the biggest ransomware event, in the biggest thing, if you're taking responsibility for everything and doing the best you can, and leading your team the best possible, then it's going to work. Everything's going to be fine. Yes, there's a hazard that the company will not understand you taking responsibility for your team and will blame you, and you'll be the fall guy. I mean, that's a kind of typical option, a typical action that we see a lot now. So that's common. But as the board is now responsible for cyber breaches, even more than the CISO, hopefully that frees up people to actually take responsibility instead of hiding and avoiding and blaming. Now, one thing that every team needs to have some level of coordination, some level of collaboration and cooperation, and that extreme owner is kind of that orchestrator. He or she helps make the team work at its kind of like optimal pace, cadence. When people are focused on something, and let's say you're using Scrum and you have your daily stand up and you have your Scrum sprints, and there's a roadblock, is that people will help, that Scrum master or whoever on that team, that leader, will help unblock that situation, will help help the team keep moving forward and keep progressing. And in the ultimate situation, obviously there's some complexity in our corporate environments, but the more simple we can keep reporting relationships, the more simple we can keep management, the more simple we can keep metrics and KPIs and OKRs, the easier it's going to be in the long run for everyone. So we need to keep everything simple so that our teams can succeed without being burdened by complexity. Now, execution and prioritizing are important. And a lot of this comes from something that I'm always harping on with my teams, is setting expectations. Prioritizing and executing is a result of setting expectations. If I set an expectation for my team that, and I've done this before, the most important thing to do is onboard new clients quickly and effectively, get documentation, get their backups running. Then across all my clients, the most important thing is backups. Failing to back up an environment and not having a way to restore is our biggest liability. After that, it's managed detection and response, it's patching, things like that. So I'm prioritizing and setting expectations. I'm saying, okay, backups, I don't want to see on a server a backup fail more than one day. I'm giving you 1 day to fix it. If there's a failure, I don't want to see it fail more than 1 day. Pardon the yawn. So just tired for some reason. Constant. It's the middle of the day and I'm like, anyway. We're looking for, success in those backups, because that's our liability, really. MDR is important. Watching those SOC alerts is important, but chances of failure is pretty high on a SOC. Like, the attacker only has to get through once, so it's hard to set success metrics around that. So prioritizing these things are what I'm doing here. But so when you're leading your cybersecurity team, figuring out how to prioritize and execute and set those proper expectations for your team is crucial. Decentralized command, I am huge on this one, and I've actually clashed with other leaders about this. I want to set my expectations for my team, let them know the mission, the broad strategy, and let them execute on it. I'm not going to micromanage them. I will not give them the how. I'm just going to give them the what and the why. And people that I've worked with that have been above me have wanted me to micromanage, have wanted me to instruct the people exactly how I want it done, and then be on them, hawk them, and make sure it gets executed properly. That's not how I work. That's not scalable. I've got too much to do. I'm going to set expectations for the team and meet with them and say, these are the things I need to do today. These are the things that are important to the mission. Go and get it done. And I expect that people themselves are practicing extreme ownership and able to take that mission and run with it. If I've done a good job, then they're able to. And if they don't, then if they don't know what I'm talking about, they'll either ask or they'll fail. Either way, it's feedback, and then I can fix it for the next time. But that's really how I operate, is decentralized command. I expect everybody to really be able to run themselves and in their subgroups. I don't expect to have to be sitting there with my hand puppeting everybody. I expect them to be able to go on their own. And that's a huge difference between me and most of my peers. And it has caused conflict where my executive direct reports were expecting me to be a super engaged middle manager, micromanaging everything that they do. And while I have a ton of executive responsibilities, as well as several teams to manage, that's not practical. Like I can't go micromanage each person. And then planning. I have to let the team know what my plan is, what the plan is, what the mission is, what the strategy is. If we have some defined tactics, what the tactics are. And I'll usually set expectations for time frames and minimum levels of performance. These are the things I want to see by these dates. But the rest of it, I leave up to them. So I don't want to process and define out every click that needs to happen. I just need them to understand that they're responsible for these things. Now, in extreme ownership, leading up and down the chain of command is important. And this is something that I've had to do a lot over the years. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But in order to be a leader, you have to lead up and down. You have to lead down to your team, but you have to manage up. You have to manage your managers. You have to communicate well, clearly, let them know what you need, and you'll get what you want if you're managing them well. And discipline. Now, obviously, discipline is, something that some people do really well. I feel like I'm very disciplined about work, but outside of work, I feel like I'm so exhausted I don't want to do anything. Other people are different. They have more balance. They're doing things outside of work to further their life. With me, it's very one-sided. But discipline equals freedom is kind of a concept, that dichotomy of leadership. It's really that if you're confident but not arrogant, if you're courageous but not reckless, if you're a fighter but also can lose graciously, if you're attentive to details but not obsessed, if you're strong but flexible, if you're humble but still interested and engaged, if you're aggressive but not overbearing, quiet but not silent, you need to be this balanced person. And that's something that it's an ongoing evolution for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of you. But continuing to learn to be a better leader is something that is super important to me, because even regardless of where the stream of cybersecurity technical know-how goes and IT, regardless of any of that, my leadership skills are with me forever. And that is something that I can use regardless of what career field I'm in. Thanks.